Hello and welcome to Frank's School, 164th day of the 4th year, first video. I'll call this introduction to Arganil to Benfeita. Now I stop in the next video. I stop at Benfeita, and the area around Benfeita you'll see in the next video tomorrow. Looks like a lot. I'll see if I can go fast. Luis Cabasso. It's an S, not a Z. Sorry, Luis. But anyway, that's the Facebook page that if you could find it, you'd see where he rides his bicycle around this area. Now, we almost didn't go to Arganil and Benfeita, and we actually were trying to reach Biodão, which we did not, but that's another matter. We almost didn't go because the driving in the mountains had been so strenuous, and having been lost, but Shirley said, okay, we'll go. We had a plan. We'd go to the city of Porto, and a coastal city, and see them, which I'm sure would be wonderful. But Shirley knew that I had, just like she had wanted to see those aldeias do Xisto, and I did too, but that was especially her thing. I wanted to see the feira semanal, the weekly fair at Arganil. It's Thursday at Arganil. And feira as an economic system has continued to fascinate me. The weekly market, and a little bit like a farmer's, well, in Bedford there's a farmer's market that's a little bit similar. I mean, it's a beginning. I'd wanted to see it, and we'd saved Thursday in order to go to Arganil. And I also had wanted to see very much the terracing that was done in that area. And so she said, well, she'd do it. She'd drive. Anyway, we got there. We got to Arganil, and we got a little late. The weekly feira was people were leaving. I don't know what it would have been like earlier. Maybe there would have been more locals, but there were. I didn't get the feeling that locals had brought their stuff down to the market to sell, but rather this was vendors. These were vendors that went from market to market, but there were few of them left, really. The two booths or barrows, I'm not sure what to call them. The place, it's where somebody parks their truck and they open an awning and set their stuff on display. I don't know, vending sites. I filmed two of them in some detail. The first was hand tools. And, if you'd listen, if you know Portuguese, if you know German, you'll hear, as I'm speaking to that man, you'll hear me get into that mix where I started off in pretty good Portuguese. The next thing you knew, I was speaking German. They're understanding. Obviously, I was a tourist. It's embarrassing for me to hear it. But anyway, if I could just settle into one or the other, I'd be okay. But anyway, those hand tools, they looked so much like what was hanging on the wall in the museum at Lausanne from, 100, 200 years ago, and even like what the Romans used back in the museum at Coimbra, the Roman ruins. I asked the man, where were these made? And he said they were made in Portugal. They were all, it was Portuguese manufacturing. And I said, where? He said, many places, to the north, but he couldn't really name a city. He said there's many places. Well, see, that interests me a lot because of the European Union and local industry, and, and I had this wish that if I were financed to do so and had time, I would have bought one of everything he had, virtually, of every one that wasn't packaged, one of each. Because a lot of those tools, you just don't see them, not exactly like that in the United States. And those are not there just to be pretty or for antiques or whatever. Those are what the people use on those mountainsides and in those terraces. All right, let's see. The other booth that I filmed was where they sold grains and beans and rice. Ever since I lived in Brazil, I've thought to myself, I could live on beans and rice. Quite happily. It wouldn't even need to have teeth. And it's so anyway, I filmed them quite closely. Now, there's a lot looking out the window. We go by a small town called Kojas. I think it's called Kojas, I think is the way you say it, Kojas. That's the one with the bridge. And that reminded me that I should say that there is an expatriate community in that area. Expatriate means living out of their native country. Mostly English, apparently, but maybe some Germans. And I suspected that anyway. You know, when you've got land like that that's so potentially beautiful and so cheap, people are going to figure that out, and so people from other parts of the world, as I say, especially England, have begun to buy. I imagine at very good prices, quintage, little tiny farming, and I should also say that a quintal with an L is singular. This is plural, quintage, and I spoke to them about them, well, a lot 2 years ago when I went up into Minho with Shirley to see the quintage that were there. Well, a quintal is a small holding. That's how you'd say it in English, a small holding, I think. But versus aldeias, what we'd seen before were these little tiny villages, tightly housed together. Well, this is a different system. The quintage they're spread out on the mountainsides. I think probably because there's more arable land, whereas in the aldeias do Xisto, that was up on a mountain where, I'm just guessing at this, that had to depend a lot on grazing of goats, probably, sheep and goats, maybe cows. Pause at the signs if you want to know exactly where this is. If you pause at the sign, you could read that. And I got to see terracing. I had wanted to see that, and I got to see that. And there's new terracing, you know, with machinery, with bulldozers or whatever. That seems to be to plant the trees, probably the eucalyptus trees, brand new. But the way they would work a mountainside or a hillside seemed to be they doze it into terraces. Now, how I know about the English community, maybe tomorrow I'll go into this a little bit more. The key words would be woofers and and permaculture. I'll say something about that tomorrow. But we stopped in Arganil and got a pamphlet. I've got it already open. It would have been lovely if I had had this information before we got there. I'm going to move this a little bit because I would like you to see it. If you know, now I know that if you sent to the Portuguese tourist agency for central Portugal, they'd probably happily mail all this stuff to you. Now this is all in Portuguese. No, there's some English here. You know, it's a map of that area. You know, it would have been so useful to have this, but I think the thing to do would be to actually get lodging in Arganil, so you were not in a hurry. Spend days there. On the back side, I did want you to see one spot especially of these. That terracing just past my finger. Again, I'll move it because I really would like you to see it. I didn't see terracing that was quite as perfect as that, but you know, with some effort or the time of year, I think we could have found it. But I was satisfied. And this looks to me like that could be Piodão, which we did not get there. All right, so anyway, we had stopped there, and of course they're always very helpful. But I wanted to see terraces, and I got to see terraces. Terracing is the right thing to do, I think, where there's hillsides, mountainsides. I even think it's the ecological thing to do, but more of that later. All right, well, I hope you enjoy coming along. Bye for now.